Hi, this is Jeneen Miller, and you are watching Pieces of Victory. Today we have on our show Anthony Brown. He is the author of a book called From Park Bench to Park Avenue. Today we will talk about his journey of how he is a survivor of domestic violence, substance abuse, and he was on the streets for 23 years. He is here today to tell his story, how he overcame his past because one person believed in him enough. He's a director of psychiatric hospital. He is teaching at a nearby community college, nursing science. He was on the BBC podcast. He is volunteering his time at a women's shelter, and he is building the Brown Manor for the homeless. Please welcome to the show, Anthony Brown. Hi, Anthony. How are you doing today? Welcome to the show, Pieces of Victory. It's such an honor to have you on the show, and I'm excited about talking about your journey from Park Bench to Park Avenue.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Do you want to start from the beginning of your journey of how it all started, your childhood, and from there on, and how you ended up being on the streets?
My childhood was rough, to say the least. I am one of four kids. I am the second to the youngest. I come from a single-parent home. A lot of alcohol was there since day one. My mom was probably drunk when I was born.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so from that point, as far as I can remember, there's always been drinking in my house. Back in the days, she would drink all the time. She would entertain people. They would come over. I would go out in the living room with her and her friends, and I would just dance like a little kid would, and she would give me praise, like, "Oh, look at my little man! Look how good he is!" And I felt like, okay, that's great. And then in the meantime, I would pick up their drinks and drink it, and get drunk and things of that nature. And I remember back then, they used to drink out of beer cans. They would put their cigarette butts out in beer cans. And so every now and again, I might swallow a cigarette butt.
Oh!
Yeah, and that's probably why I ended up smoking at a later age. But that's the story of my life. I get drunk and I act out, and I get some sort of reinforcement from that. And so as I grew up, with a single mom, again, there was a lot of abuse, different people coming over. And I remember at one point in time, probably when I was 9 or 10 years old, me and my sisters got up one day and we walked in the living room, and my mom was laying on the floor. That's when she had got shot in the head. And I remember the blood laying there. I remember the gray matter. I'll never forget that. It's imprinted in my brain. But seeing that, and as time went on, she ended up living, and we had moved from that city to a different city, and I remember the bandages around her head and things of that nature. And when we moved to this other city, it was a fresh start. But the problem is I was probably in the 6th grade by then, and making an adjustment in the 6th grade in a different town is difficult. And so I went through all of that bullying and all of that. And in the meantime, my mom's philosophy was spare the rod, spoil the child. And so I got a lot of whoopings. I call them whoopings, but just beatings, and because I know later on in life, that's all she knew, because she was trying to control, 3 out of control kids. There was 4 of us, but my brother went off to live with my grandmother. And so that was happening, and I would go to school, deal with the bullying, the new kid in town, and then go home and deal with the consequences of, acting out and things of that nature. And so eventually I barely went to school. And back then when I was going to school, the principals were allowed to paddle you. And so because of the abuse at home, I would go to school and act out, then I'll get a paddle at school, then I'd go home and get a whooping, and I couldn't win for losing. And somewhere in the middle, I started experimenting with drugs. I'm smoking pot, drinking, and then that gradually increased to taking pills and things of that nature. And so by the time I was 14, I decided I'm just going to run away from home. And so I ran away from home. I lasted probably a good 6 months. Lived in abandoned houses and things like that. I went home. My mom was worried about me, but I had to get away. And so I went home for probably a couple of weeks. She ended up putting me in the Navy. I ended up getting out the Navy because I was only 15 years old. You
Oh my
know,
God.
yeah. And so I got out the Navy, and I couldn't because nothing changed at home. And so at that point, I decided I ran off and I joined a carnival. And I did that for a couple of years. When I was 18, I came to California, and I stayed homeless and intoxicated from 14 till I was 37 years old.
Oh my God, that's awful. And when your mom was beating you, I'm assuming she was intoxicated when she was beating you.
Oh yeah, I mean she was always intoxicated.
She always intoxicated. And then, how did she get shot? Was it domestic violence? Was it random? Someone she
Um,
knew?
that was that was a great mystery. But one thing that was interesting was the guy that she was seeing at that time came over a lot. But once she got shot, he disappeared. And so throughout my whole adult life, I felt that he was the one that had shot her.
I'm
And
sure.
yeah, my whole goal in life was to get even. And it was really fascinating because when I ran off to join the carnival from 15 to 18, when I came home from the carnival, I went to see my mom, and the same guy who I felt had shot her, she ended up marrying him.
What?
Yeah, and so seeing that, being an adult at that point in time, um, was conflict because in my head I felt that he did this to her. I don't know what she was thinking, but they both drank. There was a bunch of domestic violence, and so she just said, "You know what? I can't have you two around each other because it was a conflict." And so I said,
I-
"Okay,
Why?
yeah." And so that's when I left. I'm from Ohio. I left Ohio at 18, and I never looked back. Never.
And so were you on the streets in Ohio at first and then moved to California? Or how did
Yeah.
that? So you were suffering in Ohio in those winter times, homeless.
Yes, and my cure for that is back then we used to have wooden crates that they carry things in, and so I would get a bunch of crates and take it to an abandoned house, and I'd use it as furniture. And then when I got cold, I'd burn my furniture. The problem was that if you burn something in a fireplace, smoke comes out the chimney. When the smoke comes out, then the police knows you're there.
Oh
Then you're
no,
trespassing, and I had to move on.
that's awful. And what about shelters?
No, there wasn't no shelters. I was
Oh,
14. I didn't think about shelters. I didn't think about nothing.
and then they would probably take you away too, if and you didn't want to get taken away and placed in another family. Was that the thing? You're 14
Right.
years old. Were you afraid at that point that they would take you away? You would have to go to the foster care system, or worse, mom, and the crazy boyfriend.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about more than anything. Is even when the police would arrest me at that young age, they just return you back home, and
Right.
I get beatings for
Oh,
that. And so I just learned how to hide, and you
oh,
know, yeah. Eventually, doing enough drugs, I became numb. So it really didn't matter anymore about the beatings. It's just, it was expected, and so I kind of like lost myself. It
it
was
was almost the better choice at that point in time. Do you want to go home to domestic violence and beatings, or do you want to be on the street, starving, fending for yourself, running from the cops? It just
right.
that was a better choice at the time. And then to cope with it, it was self-medicating. You were self-medicating, and that's
hmm
awful. What did you do for food?
Whatever I could do. I mean, I shoplifted a lot. Some friends, I could go to their house briefly, things like that. When I was back in Ohio, once I came out here, I just got in with the crowd of people that were drinking and using. I was older then, and you know, I was able to hang on to a couple of jobs. I got a job at a fast food place where I took care of the food, but because of my learned lifestyle, I would steal anything from anybody. It really didn't matter. So I stole from the restaurant. I stole from my friends. You know,
Oh,
I stole from stores. It didn't matter to me. It really didn't.
you didn't have anyone mentoring you. You didn't know right from wrong. You grew up in a household full of intoxicated parents, well, your mother and her friends, and that's all you knew. And they allowed you to drink. So they allowed you to do these things. Did you ever watch your mom steal?
No, actually, she was working, and I remember one time she was I guess a custodian at a bank, and she would take me and my two sisters in there to help her out. Well, all I did was steal, and so we would go through the bank and look through the drawers for lifesavers, gum, and one time we found 6 brown envelopes with money in it. It was everybody's paychecks, and so I stole that, and
Oh,
yeah, that didn't have a happy ending. It did
oh
not.
no.
Yeah, the feds was involved. I got a. That's probably the worst beating I ever got in my life. You know, um, it's. I remember I was on the carpet and she actually put her foot on my neck and hit me and beat me with an extension cord. And then I got up and I ran down the alley to a friend's house, and either she terrified my friend or something. 'Cause I remember hiding in the closet, and she opened up the closet, and I was there, and I'm trapped in the closet, and I got beat with an extension cord in the closet.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah,
I could see why you ran away from home and then you just learned how to fend for yourself by you felt like you had no other recourse than to steal, which is awful.
yeah,
So the cycle continued for years. For years.
yeah.
Did you ever sell drugs? Or I hate to ask these personal questions, but did you ever have to subject yourself to sex trafficking at all to make money selling drugs?
I sold drugs a lot, and that's how my whole. When I was little, I used to sell marijuana, selling pills. I came out to California. I started selling drugs because that's how I did get money. That's how I stayed high, is by selling drugs. And it's really interesting because I didn't. I I did 3 years in the seventh grade and 2 years in the eighth grade. That's how long they kept me in junior high. And you don't pass a class when you don't go to school.
Right.
And I did one day, and I think I walked into my high school one day and then just walked out because I thought that the only knowledge I needed was to understand that 28 grams made an ounce. That's it. Because I wanted to be a drug dealer, and so that's what I turned into. I came to California. I was homeless, hanging out with, prostitutes and things like that, up all hours of the night, selling drugs, and um, that happened for a long time. I tried to pull it together. I know I tried to go to school. I got my GED in the county jail. I tried to get a job. I tried all of that stuff, but I had to I had to get high. I had to. Addiction is really powerful, and a lot of people don't realize that it's a disease of denial. Because here I am, homeless, no money, no job, no anything, but I didn't have a problem. Everybody else had a problem.
You know what? If you, it's hindsight now, and then drugs are so addicting that you just couldn't stop. But it's a shame you couldn't have invested that money into real estate or something else. But you didn't have the tools, I guess, or a mentor, or um, you were just so addicted to drugs that was your focal point. And you could have gotten out of homelessness if you would have taken that money. And I'm not encouraging selling drugs here, but you could have used that money wisely because I imagine there was a lot of money involved.
Um, well, not really. I mean, because I dealt
What,
cocaine.
what do I know? I'm sorry.
it, it,
Educate me here. I don't know what it's like on the street selling
uh,
drugs. So there wasn't that much money, or just enough to get you high to keep you going.
just enough to get you high because when you're out there in the streets and you're in one location and the police that's their beat. They know that location, so they get to know you. And I didn't know this. Like say, hindsight was 2020. They knew me, and they knew what I was up. They knew what I was up to, you know. And even my best disguise, which was I had a T-shirt that's I had a Dare T-shirt, and that was my disguise.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
Yeah, you know. And
How did
so
how did that fly?
it didn't work well. It didn't work well. But I'm out at 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, winter time with no coat, no jacket, sweating with my Dare T-shirt at the same location, wondering why am I, you know, how come they're bothering me, you know, and um, that went on for a while, and like I said, I tried to hold it together. I got jobs at little department stores, you know, that didn't last. I got jobs at gas stations, that didn't last, you know, and I remember I got a job as a janitor at a state facility here, and I remember um, getting that job as a janitor. I was working one day, and I came out here when I was 18, and probably at 35 years old, I told everybody I didn't have any family. You know, I didn't have any brothers and sisters. I'm 3,000 miles away from home. You know, I don't have anybody, and I'm the only child. That was what I told people on the streets, and it was okay because I'm hanging out with people on the streets. And so I told them that when I got a job at the state facility, I remember somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, your brother wants to talk to you on the phone." And I'm like, "Okay." And then that's when I answered the phone. He goes, "Hey, you know, mom's dying." And I'm like, "Okay." Now, in my head, she had got shot in the head, so she was indestructible. And then, like, let me talk to her, you know, and her voice was raspy, and she said she missed me. And, you know, now I haven't seen this person since I was 15, and here I am, 35. You know, I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know, and then 3 days later, I got a call from my sister, and she goes, "Tony, mom's dead." And I'm like, wow. And at that point, my life as being a human ended. I mean, I didn't care about nothing anymore. I flew out there. Um, I went to the funeral. Everybody was strangers. I didn't know anybody. My niece, who I remember holding her in my arms as a little baby, is this big kid, you know, and I didn't know anybody. They were strangers. And my biggest thing is because I was already addicted and everything else. And so when I went back there, my first thinking was, where's the morphine that they gave her? And so I'm ransacking the medicine cabinet at my mom's funeral.
Wow. Did you
Yeah.
feel that you were so detached? Maybe I'm just trying to get into your head right now. Did you feel that you were so detached from this family? You never felt loved. You never felt cared for. You never got the things that a normal child should get. And you escaped that. Now you're coming back into that reality. And the reality just hit you like a ton of bricks? And then that's when you tried to escape with the morphine?
Yeah, well, I was under the influence. When you're a drug addict, and if you don't make sure you have enough to stay high with, then
Right?
there's a problem. And so I'm leaving California, going to a different state.
Got it.
That I don't know anybody. So I had my little care package, you know. But I was told that, you know, she died from cancer, she's in pain. Okay, where's the drugs? You know, and
Okay.
that was the focus because I didn't want to be around my family.
Sure.
I didn't, you know. And one of my relatives kind of solidified it because I never knew who my father was. I mean, I didn't even know his name till I was 15 years old. Got my own birth certificate. You know, he was never mentioned or anything.
Wow.
And I asked one of the people there. You know, I said, "Hey, does anybody here know anything about my father?" And somebody said, "If he was if he was the type of father that you are a son, then it's no wonder you never met him." And I went, "Oh,
Awful.
you know, just get me out of here."
I
You
know.
know,
Why
and
did
so
you go there in the first place? And I know that sounds cold. She is your mother, but she beat you. she was horrible to you, did you do it out of respect? Did you do it because you thought drugs would be there? I mean, did you want closure? What were the reasons? I know it sounds cold, but she was cold to you. I'm just curious why you were there in the first place.
I just went because she was my mother.
Right.
I just thought that was the thing to do.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
there wasn't no rationalization, nothing. It was just, okay, that's your mom. And so I went up and I seen her. We had the funeral at home. I looked for the morphine, didn't find any, but I looked. And after she got buried, then I came back down to California. And at that point, my life was just, I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die. And I didn't want to feel. And I really didn't care about anything. I mean, I it didn't matter if I got arrested. It didn't matter if I was homeless. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. It's a feeling of complete emptiness that's really hard to describe. And I think in my book I talk intensely about that feeling. But it's just I was at a point where nothing mattered. It didn't matter. And so I had no rules. At that point I had no rules. I could do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, to whom I want. And it didn't matter. Because what's the worst? What's the worst that's going to happen to me? I'll die. Then I don't have to live this way anymore. And that was my attitude. And so that's when I got full blown into selling drugs. That's when I first started getting arrested. I was violent. It was a sad thing, and I was trying to escape reality, but I can't run from myself, and that's really difficult when you're trying to run from the problem, but you are the problem. You have nowhere to go, and that's the life I was living. And so I tried to sell drugs at the same place, and it's kind of funny because I would sell drugs, I would get arrested, I would go to jail, I would detox, I would get fed, and I liked jail. I mean, it was a lot better than what I had going on
That's
out there.
probably why you kept going to the same place, because you didn't care about getting caught.
Exactly, and I didn't. And when I was in jail, I mean, when I look back at it, yeah, that was it. But when I would get caught and I would go to jail, I would sit in jail and I would sober up and I would think, well, there's a problem. I would sit there and go, there is an actual problem. And so I thought the solution to my problem was that I needed to hide my drugs better. And so
Oh.
I would put my drugs in my sock and I would go back to that same location.
The cycle continues. I'm sorry to laugh, but the cycle continues.
Yes, yes. And so I would get busted and they'd send me to jail. I'd do longer in jail. I go to prison. I think while I'm in prison because I consider myself an analytical type of guy, you know. And I think and I look at the situation. I had plenty of time to do it, and I thought, okay, well the problem is maybe I should hide my drugs in that little pocket in my jeans, you know. And so I got out of jail. I went back to that same location, and I had the drugs in my pocket, and I got arrested again. And so this time I go back to prison, and I'm sitting in prison going, okay, something has to change. And I, you know, had to come up with a solution. I, and my solution was to keep the drugs in my hand. And so whenever the police would come, I could throw it away. And so I got out of jail. I went back to that same location, and I got too high, and I forgot it was in my hand. And so I got arrested again. And so I knew that something had to change. I knew that there was a problem. I knew something was wrong, but I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know what was wrong. And so I'm back in jail again, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to find a solution to this problem. And so I got out, I got out of jail, and guess where I went?
Back to the same location again. Subconsciously, did you just want to stay in jail because it was warmer? You had a roof over your head, you had meals, and you were detoxing. Do you think
I,
subconsciously you wanted a better way, but you didn't know it?
I don't know, but I didn't go back to the same location. I went one block south from the location. That was my idea. Yeah,
Okay,
and I
we're,
still got
we're
arrested.
moving on up.
Yeah. Yeah. But this time, when I got arrested this time, it was interesting because a police officer I guess that was his beat, and he continued to arrest me. And he asked me at that point, it's like, don't you think you should get some help? And when he said that, I was just like done. I mean, this was years in the making. And when he said that, I'm like, yeah, I think so. And he introduced me to a lady that has this treatment center. And I remember sitting in jail, and I, when I go to jail, I get prepared to go to prison. You know, I shave all my hair off, I do a bunch of push-ups. You know, I get psychologically ready to do what I have to do in jail to survive that part. And so I'm getting ready, and I'm sitting in the holding tank, and this lady comes up, and she's like, "Hi, I'm going to help you." Now, I've been homeless from 14 to 35, and nobody has ever said, "I'm going to help you."
Wow.
No one. Because I, I don't look like a fancy homeless person. I mean, my hair is crazy, my clothes is dirty, I really don't smell that well, and I'm not a nice guy. And so nobody approaches me to say, "Hey, do you want some help?" People usually cross the street, or they don't come in the alleys that I hang out in. And so this lady just said, "Hey, I'm going to help you." And I'm like, "Okay." And when she said that, in my head, I'm thinking, well, this would be a good place to sell some drugs from. Nobody's going to know, you know? And I thought about that. And, you know, when it was time for me to get released from jail, somebody from the treatment center came. And yeah, well, because of this lady and this police officer and their connections with the court system, the court, instead of sending me to prison, sends me to this treatment center.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was awesome, but it was different because I went through all of these years being and developing who I am as this. I call it like the negative, the negatives of a Polaroid picture. That's how dark and dank my life was, and I'm thrusted into this whole new bright world of people who are caring, and it was a culture shock,
Right.
you know. And I
How did
thought,
you feel? How did it make you feel? Were you scared? Were you trying to embrace it? Were you hateful of it? Were you angry about it? Or were you loving the nurturing part of it?
I was extremely skeptical
Okay.
because I come from a world that if you do anything for me, you want something from me.
Sure.
And so here I am put in this place, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what do you guys want from me? You
Right.
know, and it's really fascinating because they really didn't want anything, you know. And when they picked me up, I had the idea I'm going to sell drugs out of there. And the first lady that picked me up, you know, she asked me, she goes, "Hey, you want a cigarette?" I'm like, "Okay, well, what's going on here?" You know. And then she said, "Do you want some Chinese food? I'll take you out to eat." And
Oh,
I'm okay. And then she took me to this treatment center and she said, "Do me a favor. If you're going to leave, don't jump over the fence. Just walk out the gate." And I'm like,
wow.
yeah. And I'm like, "You trust me?" He goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, well, at that point, I'm like, okay, let me see what this is all about
Right.
now.
So
And
then you started realizing it was genuine.
yes, and it wasn't just that lady or just the other people there. The whole community was like, yeah. Well, I'm skeptical, and I'm in this new environment, and I'm just sitting there observing, you know, very apprehensive of everything around me because in my head, for all of those years, nobody wants nothing for free, and I knew there was a catch. But the catch was we want you to get your life in order. But I didn't understand that part yet,
Right.
you know. And so
It's a whole new world for
it
you.
was a completely different world. Completely. I mean, I lived at night and in the dark, and these people walked around in the daylight with jobs and being happy and driving cars. I mean, I'm homeless riding a bicycle, you know, with two different tires on it, thinking I'm balling. And I'm put in this environment, and you know, for the first 30 days, I couldn't go anywhere. Well, I'm used to not going any place for 30 days, you know. And so I'm put in that environment, and that's when they introduced me to, a recovery program and all of that stuff. And so I went to my first recovery meeting, and I remember going there after 30 days, and they're like, well, who are you? Why are you here? And I told them, I'm here because it's against my own will. They're making me stay at this treatment place. They're giving me hot dogs. I have to make up my bed. It's a bunch of BS, and that's not cool, And everybody start clapping. I'm like, okay. Then the next guy stood up and he goes, you know what? He said his name and he looked at me and he goes, you're just a whiny little, and then he called me some things I don't want to repeat. But he actually called me on my crap. And I'm fearless. I really don't care about much. But this guy said something like, dude, we're not going to put up with your BS. If you want to do this, you can. And all of those guys was rowdy and cussing, and I felt at home. And then they introduced me to this whole program of recovery, and I started hanging out with them, and life got a little better. I would go to these meetings. I'd go back home. Everybody was friendly. Things were good.
Oh.
And I got a job as a telemarketer. I mean, I was like, whoa, I was bathing regularly. Everything was great.
That's awesome. That's great. You were finally taking care of you. You were finally allowing yourself to love you were finally allowing yourself to love yourself. You weren't doing that before. You were so closed, and for good reason. But you were closed to everything, even loving yourself. And that's sad.
Yeah, and it's really hard to love yourself when you don't know what love is.
Exactly.
And these people were just like showing me genuine love. Like they cared about me. And I was rough. I mean, somebody would say something, I'd look at them like, oh, don't even talk to that guy. But then people would be like, man, you got that stupid look on your face again? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And so, that lasted for a while. I stayed in that environment for the year that I got sentenced. Everything was great. I moved on into sober living last 6 months, and then I ran into an old friend of mine's wife, and she told me he wasn't doing good, so I went and hung out with him. Everybody there was doing drugs, and there's a saying: if you hang out in the barbershop, you're going to get a haircut.
Right.
And I went back to that old environment, and there was a sharp contrast. Here I'm living this life sober as a square, but it's boring. I mean, I get paid minimum wage, and I have to sign my check over and start giving this lady the money for this treatment center. However, on the other side of the street, it was fast action. People were just like, I missed it. And then finally came that day I used again. And
so it's like an adrenaline rush for you.
It was, and I felt comfortable. And shortly thereafter that, it's interesting because once I got sober and got into recovery, I had this really good life. I slept, I was comfortable. I mean, it was great. And once I started getting high again, everything got uncomfortable, and I started feeling guilty. And this was the first time I've ever felt guilty for getting, and I wanted it.
It was starting to sink in. So maybe this was a good thing because now it's more penetrating that this needs to stop.
Yeah. And it drove me crazy because I wanted to stop, but I couldn't.
So did you reach out? Did you reach out this time because you knew it was beyond your control? You were out of control. It was beyond.
I from a little kid, I've always knew God to be a rescue God. I mean, if when I was out there and somebody pulled a gun to my head, it's like, oh God, please don't let him shoot me, and I didn't get shot. Or when you're in a situation, I overdosed once. I'm like, oh please God, don't let me die. I didn't die. And so when I was in that situation, and I remember March 28th, I'm like, please God, I can't stop, help me.
Oh.
And I got arrested the next day. And I'm like, thank you.
And that was your vehicle to getting help?
Yes. And
to the same cop again?
No, I got smarter. I went to a whole different city. Yeah. I went to a whole different city, but the results was the same. You know, I got arrested. Everything was great. I was embarrassed because I was in sober living with the lady who initially got me from court. I felt guilt. I felt shame because I let her down because she actually helped me and she helped me get my life straight for 18 months. And this is how I repaid her.
Right.
But she came to court and she represented me.
Wow.
And I'm like, I mean, even to this day, and this was over 21 years ago, I still work with this lady.
Oh.
Yeah. And I I went and she represented me at court. Um, they sentenced me, and then she picked me up from prison and took me to her place. And ever since then, my life has been completely different. Completely different.
And for someone to just not give up on you that way, just not throw in the towel, how did that make you feel?
It 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 was good. It was welcoming. It was warm. I mean, somebody really cared for me. I mean, not just in words, but in action. You know, she came and represented me in court. I mean, she didn't have to, you
Exactly.
know, but she did. And then she took me back and she told me, you know, the only thing you have to start all over again is your sobriety date. That's it, you know. And I, from that point, my life has just got good. You know, I got closer to God, which is kind of fascinating because I experiment with a lot of things, and I experimented with this whole God concept. You know, I remember being at the park one day, and I was 2 years sober, and so the drugs was out of my system. You know, and I said, hey, you know what, God, I know cars run on gas, and I know concrete objects are solid. I know this for a fact. Prove to me that you're a God. And man, I had this crazy, crazy, overwhelming feeling of ease and comfort. And that feeling is with me today, 21 years. You know, the story I told you, that's where I come from. And when we first started, you know, you asked, what do I do? Or you went over what I did. I'm the director of nursing in a psychiatric hospital right now. You know, I'm
See,
a I'm a teacher at a college teaching nursing science. You know, the symbol behind me, the heart, that's a corporation I built. You know, I wrote a book. Okay, I have a bachelor of science degree. I bought a mansion. I own this house I live in. And the story I told you is where I come from. Now, how did that happen? Because I found the God in the miracle business, you know, and that's what I share with people openly. I'm more spiritual than I am religious. You know, I don't believe in just one set of instructions that get you to a certain destination,
I
but I
agree.
believe that there is a destination. And I, a lot of people, the reason why I wrote my book is a lot of people said, well, you should write your story because that's crazy. You know, I came in with an eighth grade education and I have a bachelor's degree in nursing. You know, I came in homeless. I own two homes. I came in with nothing, and I can't say that life is a struggle because I know better now. Life is life. You know, it's my attitude towards life that's completely different now. You know, and I'm grateful that I went through what I went through so that I could do what I'm doing today.
Sure. Your experience is everything. And
Exactly.
I always believe that things do happen for a reason. Perhaps maybe this was, character building. It was building empathy and compassion towards other people. And now you are building a homeless shelter
Hmm.
called the Brown Manor, and
Yes.
you bought it,
Hmm.
and you are doing a GoFundMe for that. You have a book from Park Bench to Park Avenue. I'm so proud of you and all of the things that you've accomplished, and such a great spirit to pay it forward. You're paying it forward, and That's awesome.
It's, I always tell people this is what I'm designed to do by some power far greater than I can ever imagine. I mean, I laugh because I'm I'm the director of nursing. I'm out there, corona. I just had to set up a program to test 200 people for coronavirus, and people would say, "Aren't you worried about the virus?" And I just laugh and go, "You know what? I've put so much stuff in my body." I mean, you really think coronavirus has a chance in here? And
You have
um,
rescue God.
yeah,
Rescue God.
yeah. It's like, okay, whatever. You know, um, People are getting frustrated because we have like stay-at-home orders and things like that. And it's like me staying at home compared to how many times I've been locked up. Really? I mean, I have TVs and air conditioning and a refrigerator, so that's no problem for me. You know, it's fascinating how all of that got me perfectly designed to deal with this.
Right.
And it's a mindset. I've discovered that life is temporary. You know, my conscious contact with who I call God, has led me to believe that all of this stuff that I'm experiencing is temporary. The human body isn't designed to stay forever. It's,
Right.
and so it's cool. I wasn't born with this stuff, and when I die, I can't take it with me. So I just get to borrow it as I exist.
That's a good analogy of this life.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. And
It's a
everything.
vehicle. Our bodies are just a vehicle to get us to another level, and everything is a learning experience. Your past is definitely a learning experience, and it's knowledge. It's knowledge to help other people.
hmm and that's what I get to do. I know how to deal with homeless people because I was homeless. I understand what happens when you have $20 and you have to make a decision between getting something to eat and you're under the influence of drugs. I know why you make that decision. You know, I know when I go down the street and I see a pile of clothes. I know underneath those clothes is somebody's son or daughter or brother or sister. I understand that. you know. And I'm not just gonna say, "Oh, pour them or give them $1." I'm taking it to a whole different level. It's like, I'm gonna build you guys a house, you know, and
Oh,
it's yours, and it's not just a shelter, but it's a community center where you can go in and hang out in the living room and gain some knowledge from somebody else, where people who are educated like myself can come and sit down and teach you anger management or stress reduction or understanding the pharmacodynamics of medication. You know, let's learn some nutrition today. Let's talk about it in a friendly way in which it diffuses your, it brings down your wall so that you can become receptive. Because everybody on this planet has a chance. Everybody does. And from my experience, I know. I mean, I got a chance in eighth grade to who I am. And so I know this works, but it's not just a one size fit all thing. I work in healthcare. I'm the director of nursing. I lead so many team meetings. It's crazy, and I know different disciplines and things like that. And one thing I see in common is everybody's going to bring their own personality to the table, which is great. But sometimes people are there for different reasons, which
right.
is okay. But if you're not of the right mindset, you won't be able to accept that. And that's one thing I learned. That's my philosophy. So I'm cool with what you choose to do is up to you. That's it's cool. But if you give me the opportunity and I think something's going wrong, I'm going to figure out a way to communicate that with you to help you, because that's what it's all about. How can I help the next person?
And one size fits all. You don't want a one size fits all anyway. You're too analytical for that.
Well,
You want to troubleshoot. It'll break up the monotony. I mean, you're analytical. It's probably good for you anyway that it's not a one size fits all. And who is going to want to listen to someone who hasn't been down that road? That's why your experience is everything. someone can identify with you. You know, you have been there, done that. Someone who is trying to get off drugs most likely isn't going to listen to someone who hasn't been there, done that, who just has textbook knowledge. You have experience, and that is everything. And you gain a lot of trust that way, I feel.
As human beings, and it's funny because collectively we're this huge puzzle that looks really cool. But separately, we're just a bunch of pieces that look misshapen. And we all come together every now and again to create this beautiful image or this great thought that together we can do what we do. And sometimes life happens, you know, and we get shattered, we get broken, or we get displaced, all of that. But somewhere the winds of whatever you want to call it, whether God, weirdness, or the universe, blows us by each other every now and again so that we can communicate and be comfortable in what we are doing in our own separate lives. Then we move on to the next thing.
I do believe there's power in numbers, for sure. And I remember being younger, wanting to just do everything myself on my own. I want to do this. I can do this. And then when I started allowing other people and just not be so prideful about that, I realized as a team, it is so much better and so much more powerful. And everyone has a different forte. And if we can bring all of that together, man, is that powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We can accomplish a lot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so here I sit with my interview. I'm excited because, again, I want to get the word out that humanity, we still have a chance. You know, we can still, because eventually all of the stuff that's going on is going to go by. That's just normal. You know, what time everything's going to heal. How are we going to be shaped by our events, you know, that's going on? And I'm just grateful that I get this opportunity to even be in this part, to play my part in it. You know, I mean, I'm a teacher, and I'm educating psychiatric technician students on how to go out and deal with people that have mental illness. After end of all of the stuff that's going on, there's going to be a spike in mental. That's my little prediction. There's going to be a spike in mental illness. It's going to be, whether it's going to be the substance use type or the depression type or the anxiety. Something's going to happen from all of this. We're just humans, and we learn quickly if we do something over and over again, and that's going to happen. And who's going to be able to help those people walk back to what's considered a normal life? It's going to be us. It's going to be the psych techs I get to teach, you know. And so I have a purpose, and it feels good.
Have a purpose.
Yeah.
Definitely. And when you have a purpose in life, that's what gets you up in the morning.
Exactly. I wake up happy. Everybody always asks me, how come you're so happy? Because I'm alive.
Oh.
That's the first thing. When I get up in the morning, I'm grateful I'm alive. You know, and then I look at the things I have. I can see, you know, I have running water. I have batteries for my remote control. All those are gifts.
Right.
All those are gifts. I have socks. You know, I have clothes. I have soap. I mean, the list goes on. So when I go throughout my day, and if my supervisor says, "Well, hey, you didn't do this right," it's like, yeah, I might not have done that one right, but I did 100 things right already, so I'm winning.
And because you just have such a contrast of dark and light, you can really appreciate when the light hits.
Exactly.
And that overrides the darkness for you because you've had that experience. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome. How many people today can wake up and genuinely say, boy, am I glad to be alive? How many?
Mm-hmm.
And so your experience has made you into the person that you are today. And I want to share with the audience, from Park Bench to Park Avenue, I want to do a short clip of your trailer right about now.
Okay.
Don't quit before your miracle happens.
Addiction, alcoholism, separation, racism, gang violence, abuse. These were just some of the things that faced me as a 10-year-old boy. Beating so bad that they left welts on my body for days. Witnessing my mother's violent boyfriend. Coming home to find my mom in a puddle of blood, shot in the head. Things were different after that. I was different. I had a hole that developed in my soul. A soul sickness that I couldn't escape. Physically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually bankrupt. I started running, and I didn't stop. By now, I was addicted to every kind of drug I could find to fill that hole in my heart. Homeless at 14 years old, I walked the streets of Ohio and beyond for over 23 years. This is my story, living on a park bench, but it could be any homeless person's story. Like a never-ending tornado taking everything in its path, until one day God intervened through one person. One person believed in me for the first time. One person made a difference in my life and offered me a way out. I have lived through trauma and discovered resiliency. I have lived through addiction and found recovery. I have been incarcerated and discovered rehabilitation. I have been homeless and found residency. All of these are facts, but the bottom line is that we all have a story. For me, I'm no longer living on a park bench. I'm living my best life now in my own version of Park Avenue.
Pick up your copy of Anthony Brown's biography, From Park Bench to Park Avenue. Proceeds will go towards helping the homeless find hope and freedom in a home called Brown Manor.
I love your trailer. Your trailer is so captivating and it is so inspirational, and I fell in love with your trailer right away, and I cannot wait to read your book.
Okay.
From Park Bench to Park Avenue. I'm excited about reading your book and getting the word out about how to go from a dark situation into the light.
I've already gave you history where I come from.
Exactly.
You know, and so everything else is a bonus. Everything. I mean, absolutely everything. So even having that trailer, you know, or being able to present that trailer, if you'd have told me that 22 years ago, I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. You know, you got $5. You know, that would have been my little thing. You know, here it's like, oh yeah, you had a trailer. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine and dandy, that's cool. But I want people to understand that this is where I come from, and this is what I can do now.
Right.
And so you can do it. Anybody can do this, to be honest with you. Anybody can. If I come from a place, abuse from day one. My mother was probably drunk when I was born.
Wow.
Okay. I was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. I was blue. Okay.
Oh my God.
I have been in so many different situations in which I should have died. So many, you know. And I've been in a whole life cycle in which I wish I was dead. And now we get to sit here and talk about a video trailer that I put together.
And you can hear it in your voice too, in your trailer.
Mm-hmm.
The intensity, and you are just right back there in that moment. You can put yourself right back in that moment, and I just captivated me from the beginning in that trailer with your voice and talking about the time where you were just in dire straits and had nowhere to go, but it just took one person made a difference.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes, is one person to make a difference. You can make a difference in someone's life by smiling at them or saying how beautiful they are, or appreciating their work. It doesn't matter if you're a janitor, if you are a cashier. Everything makes the world go around. Everybody plays a part. Everybody is important. And
Absolutely.
take the time to say that to someone. Boy, it just pays it forward.
And it feels good.
It does.
It feels good. Genuinely deep down inside, it feels good knowing that you make a difference in somebody's life. You know, that's huge. That having the ability to feel wanted, not necessarily needed. There's a difference, but feel wanted. It's huge. It's huge. And I think human beings want to have that sense of belonging. We want to be part of.
Sure.
You know, when we're isolated and by ourselves and homeless and things like that, we're lonely. But we don't know how to say that I feel lonely. You know, fears have developed by whatever it is that made us in that situation. And if you add drugs and alcohol, then you have an artificial sense of being anyway. You know, you're just blocking off everything. Then you take away the drugs and alcohol, and if you're lucky to get through the withdrawal symptoms, then you have a bunch of emotions you're not even used to dealing with.
Right.
But
It's
once
just putting a Band-Aid on the situation.
exactly. But once you're healed, in order to keep that wound intact, you have to give it away.
As soon as you had said that you felt guilty, I knew you were on your way to recovery. Because you said, I felt bad that this woman spent her valuable time to help me out, and I really disappointed her. And, you know, I felt that you genuinely wanted to help yourself, but I just felt like it was just out of your control at that point. And, you know, you acknowledged it and reached out again for help. And that was awesome.
That's the key, you know. And even now, I'm not afraid to ask for help. I'm not, you know. I'll say, hey, can you help me? And if they go no, I'm like, okay, that's cool, you know, because you've already helped me just by saying no. Because now I understand where you are, you know, understand where your mindset is. I am so analytical. I mean,
That's a way of looking at it.
yeah. You know, I thought when I was sitting in jail thinking of better ways to hide my drugs but not working it, I apply the same principles with a clear head. And I'm extremely creative, but I think all of us are. You know, we all have some sort of talent. It's just discovering it and enjoying it instead of making it a job and just let it flow.
Right.
Now, it's amazing. It's a great feeling, you know, a great feeling. It's if I could take a piece of how I feel and just hand it to you so you can experience it, you'd go, oh my God, yeah. And you probably have moments of that. You do, because you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you didn't.
Let's talk about the Brown Manor. I'm excited about this. So you bought this piece of real estate to help the homeless, and you put some of your hard-earned money into it. We have a GoFundMe for it. How can we find you on GoFundMe? Is it under Anthony Brown? Is it under Brown Manor?
It's under Brown Manor.
Brown Manor. Okay.
Yeah, GoFundMe Brown Manor, and it's Brown Manor. I love Brown Manor. I do not believe that things happen randomly. Everything has an orderly fashion, and if you're patient enough, you'll get to see that order unfold in front of you. And Brown Manor, when I first thought about getting Brown Manor, it's because I have a relative that's homeless. And, you know, they contacted me and said, hey, I'm homeless. Well, I understand homelessness. And so, okay, what can I do to help you? And also understand some of the elements that will help a person stay homeless. Doing drugs, having mental illness, things of that nature. And so my relative said he was homeless. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Where are you staying? And he said, well, I'm living in this old doctor's building. Okay, I've been there, done that, you know. It's like, how about you find out who owns the building, and I'll buy the building for you. So he had, because I know and but he couldn't coordinate it, and so I got mad, and so I just went online and looked up a building, and lo and behold, it was the mansion. I'm like,
What?
okay, yeah, I'll just buy this, you know. And so I purchased I purchased the mansion, and my relative wouldn't go to this other city, so I said, okay, you know what? I'll just, give it to the homeless people. And I live in California. Brown Manor is in Ohio,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, and I bought it without ever stepping foot in it. I
Wow.
just did, yeah, I bought it all by faith. And when I when I went to close the deal, I flew out there, and I remember walking in there for the first time, like, oh my god, I bought this place, you
It's,
know.
by the way, it is beautiful. I see potential.
Oh my god, yes.
I see a lot of potential with it.
But I believe that God is either everything or He's nothing, and I choose to say He's everything. And there's a reason why He had me get that place. And when I looked up the history, the first guy that had that place was named James Brown.
What?
But it's funny because that house really is Brown Manor, because the original owner is his last name is Brown,
That's
and
too
he
much
built a mansion.
serendipity there.
Yeah, and so I paid for it. I went and I looked at it. I didn't like it at night, but once the daylight hit it and I prayed and everything, oh my God, that house is beautiful. I love the way it feels. I mean, I walked through it. I inhaled the air. I visualized. It reminds me of that movie, The Titanic. You know, when they go and then close their eyes and come back to when it was all luxurious and everything. That's
Right.
how I, that's how I seen that house. And so I
Wow.
went, and I seen it, and I said, okay, now I have this house, and I know it's going to cost money because I work like forever, and it's like, okay, that's fine because none of this stuff is mine anyway, and so I work and I put money into the house, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to write a book to help fund the house, and now we have a fundraiser, and you
Oh, wow.
know,
The book came after the house.
yeah,
Interesting. Okay, that was the vehicle to put more money into the house.
right,
That's so awesome.
yeah.
That's so awesome. And what is the status of it now? Or how are we doing with GoFundMe?
Right now we have, I think, probably 3,200. I don't know anything about GoFundMe. There's a lot of things I don't know about because this part of life is still new. But we have actually we have 3,700. Somebody just gave me a check for $500, and so that's there. It does need repair. This month, God willing, we're gonna put a new roof on the house, and so that's good. I'm really fortunate that the guy I bought the house from, his brother, he owns a construction company, and since because I believe in doing everything right, and since our exchange, because I bought this house without seeing it, so I'm sending this guy money, you know, and a lot of my friends or associates would say, "You're just throwing your money away. You don't even know who this guy is. You're sending money 3,000. I mean, because I spent some money on that house, and they're like,
Right.
you're sending money blind. It's like, what? I have belief. I have faith, and everything went well. Then he introduced me to his brother, has a construction company, and he's like, hey, my brother will work, at a discount and all of that. And so he's out there being my eyes and ears. I have a nephew that I took off the street that's down there. And so Brown Manor, with luck, we're going to have a roof on it. Then after the roof comes the furnace. And then after the furnace comes the inside. And then comes the program. Then that's where I'll be.
Oh, that's awesome. And I feel that when things are meant to be and you are on the right path, everything just falls into place. And you were talking about blind faith and trusting the construction worker.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was blind faith, but everything was just falling into place. Every person played a role in this. It's a miracle. It's a miracle house for the homeless. Living today, it's a miracle that you've recovered, and we have this house for the homeless. It's just so awesome. I'm excited about it. And you said you felt good energy going
Yes.
to this house.
Yeah, a lot of positive energy. I mean, it's good. It's good. And the beauty of it is, it's like it's not my house; it's God's house. I just get to be a little vessel to put it together. You know, that's the cool part. It's not mine. It's not mine. I just get to play with it.
Well, your energy is definitely around that house and in that house, and you are a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
Us together collaborating, and I'm excited because once I get to a point, I would like to get involved with the Brown Manor too. I want to get involved with the Brown Manor, and I want to get involved with helpforteens.org. That's my friend James Swift, and I don't know if I introduced you to him or not, maybe not, but I would like to introduce you to him. He's helping the homeless teens, so teens that have been kicked out on the street for being gay. He is building a homeless shelter for them, and perhaps maybe we can all work together. So I'm excited about that.
Okay, yeah, because Brown Manor is 9,000 square foot. You know, I have 12 bedrooms.
Oh, wow. That is some mansion. I didn't realize how the square footage on it. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. When you look at a city block, okay, that house in the parking lot takes up a half a block.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's huge. It's huge. So
I-
there's
I can't wait to see it. My day will come.
well, come on down.
Throw the unemployment and
Come on down. You know.
bridge, and then I'll come see the Brown Manor. That would be awesome.
Yeah, whatever anybody can do to help, just to even sit down and go, "Hi, how are you?" To talk to somebody, you know, that's what it's all about. It's about saying, you know what, you're a human being, and we love you, or you're a human being. Have a drink of water, you know, or I see you're having a bad day. That's okay, you know. Come talk to me when you feel better, but at least know that I'm here. That's what it's about. It's not about, oh, you're having a bad day, get out. It's not about, oh, you smell bad, get out. No, it's about, you're a human being, okay? And we're going to love you till you love yourself, because I know you're going to love yourself.
Oh,
You know, that's what Brown Manor is.
oh.
It's just,
It is so touching and so heartfelt, and it has your energy all over it, for sure.
yeah.
And definitely your way of paying it forward. And I'm excited to see the changes, the transformation of someone's life. It's basically it's a vehicle, a vessel to give someone the opportunity to change their life for the great good.
Yeah. All you have to do is get somebody to believe and then give them some hope. And that's when change happens.
I agree. Positive conditioning can take someone to the moon.
Imagine a safe place where the broken can mend, and every life has a purpose. This is the story of Brown Manor.
Disheveled, dirty, desperate, and different. Just a few of the words that describe my 23 years living as a homeless young man on the streets. A product of alcoholism, beatings, separations, racism, and abuse. These led me down the dark path of addiction and incarceration. Somehow, through the stench and desperation, I found God. Someone had thrown away a Bible in the trash can, and the pages were covered with food and fluids. I painstakingly peeled each page apart to clean and dry each of them, similar to what God was doing in my own life. I found hope, I found peace, I found a new way to live, and yes, even forgive. I was broken, but broken people can mend. I was given a fresh start, a new beginning. I started a new journey of recovery, and soon I was free. Maybe this is what drew me to this dilapidated house, a house I come to call Brown Manor. I saw my life as this house, a house that was dank and dirty, a house that needed to be repaired and restored. It was a neglected house, one that used to be full of life. I wanted to bring life back to that house. This is how the story of Brown Manor began. I scraped together a down payment with the help of some friends and carefully began putting the parts of that house back together again. I want to create a home for the homeless, those with no place to go, or the cheerful good morning greets them at breakfast each day. A community resource center to bring hope and healing from addiction, anger, and mental illness. This is Brown Manor, a place where physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing is possible. An oasis for people who are weary and want to give up. And so, Brown Manor is under construction, but I need your help to make this dream possible. We are looking for people who want to make a difference and donate to build this home for the homeless. I've also written my book in a story called From Park Bench to Park Avenue. The proceeds will go towards getting Brown Manor ready for the community. If my pain can be used to change even one way, then I willingly use my experience to lift up another. At Brown Manor, we believe it's a hand up, not a handout.
Make a difference and donate to Brown Manor today. Purchase From Park Bench to Park Avenue, and the proceeds will go towards Brown Manor. You can make a difference.
I really enjoy being on your show. It was definitely an eye-opening because every time I talk about my life, I get to see it more clear, you know. And the more clear I can see, the more it makes sense. And the more that it makes sense, then it's easy for me to go out and do what I have to do for whatever it is that I'm building a future for.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for being on the show. You have proven that no matter what this life deals you, you can overcome any obstacle that life throws at you. This life isn't easy. We experience darkness all the time, but it's up to us to keep pushing for the light. It's up to us to reach out and accept help. There is help out there. You just need to find it. Keep reaching for the light. Pay it forward. Anthony has proved that time and time again. Thank you so much, Anthony, for being a light to us today. I am Jeneen Miller, and this is Pieces of Victory.
Each step gets me closer to that destination, to wherever it is I'm supposed to be. You know, I have, again, I'm analytical. I always wonder why, and that's in my book. The whole beginning chapter is like, why is this? Why is that? Why is this? Why is that? You know, and I'm getting all these questions answered. You know, why does the sun shine on Sunday? Well, the sun always shines anyway. You know, but why am I here at this exact moment having this interview? You know, I ask questions like that, and when I don't get enough, and when I don't get an answer that's satisfactory enough, then I have another level. I can take it to my higher power. And who knows, maybe I'm building this really cool transcendental gate that I'll just like glide back and forth and come back with deja vu, and people be like, oh my God. It's like, yeah, you know, it's me.
I noticed you do meditate. I've noticed that, and I want to talk about coping mechanism.
Okay.
So when did you start learning how to meditate? Was it when you started reaching out for help? Did someone introduce you to meditation? When did you start getting into that? Because I believe that is probably one of your biggest coping mechanisms that you have.
Meditation, I I've always been a believer in different types of religion. I don't. Again, I think religion is just a bunch of maps, and spirituality is where you get to once you follow those maps. And so I've always been open to all kinds of different ideas, thoughts, and theories and principles. And probably when I start doing focus meditation, is right at that point where I asked if God was real.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that changed my entire being. I mean, if if I could describe with clarity exactly how I felt at that moment, then that would make me $1 million. You know, but isn't some things are best felt than spoken. And I try to allow my actions to dictate how I feel, but it's such a profound effect that it's intense. And once that occurred, then my meditation just it's just went to a whole different level. I mean, I'm able to focus. I love aromatherapy. I love getting my scented candles out. I like listening to violin music and then just going there. And I have such a ease of mind that whatever I pick up is easy to digest. Everything makes sense. It just flows. And so I'm I've probably been meditating for 19 years. Um, and there's times I'll sit down and just do intentional meditating, focus meditation, because I'm not Gandhi and I'm not Mother Teresa. I am not. I'm just an individual that somehow found a way to tap into a source that allows them to be ease and comfort in my nows, and I put together a bunch of nows. That's my life. And from 19 years ago, I sat and I had that I call my little spiritual experience, and that taught me how to sit still. And as long as I can sit still, then wherever I'm connected, and again, I always try to call it my conscious contact with my higher power or God. Whenever I'm in unison with that force, everything just just flows. And I can take a deep breath and I can walk and I can feel. And when you're in that sort of mindset, at least from my experience, everything in your immediate surrounding becomes calm. So your absence of chaos as you walk through your journey and things open because now you're more aware of what's happening. And I got that combination with my analytical mind. And this has allowed me to do things like go from having a bunch of felonies to be able to pass medications.
Yes, Anthony, I feel like you're absolutely right getting to the root of the problem
Yeah,
with these, with these programs.
right. A lot of these programs, especially when it comes to kids, okay, the kids are just a trigger. That's all it is. They're not the main buildup. It's the kids are the tip of the iceberg. The issues underneath the water is what the people overseeing the kids have to deal with outside that hospital, outside that facility. If we can get to them there, then it will trickle down as far as what their responses are to the kids. I always tell people it's like a 1 to 10 meter. You go home, you're dealing with the stress and pressure. Who knows what's happening? You could be getting a divorce. You can have some drug issues. Your bills can be behind, and you walk to work and you got this huge 90% of something going on, and all the kid has to do is not tie a shoestring, and you blow up.
Right.
We need to figure out how can we get a message to that person at home so that his 90% can drop to 70%. So when he goes to work, the kid doesn't tie up his shoestring. He can say, "Hey, you know what, man? Let me help you tie up your shoestring," instead of saying, "You stupid," and things like that. Because a lot of time we'll walk around with our cup full, and all it takes is one more drop, and that's what happens with these kids. These kids ain't doing nothing. The kids are just a reflection of what's happening to them,
Right.
you know. But if we can get the counselors to be able to understand what's going on with their own stuff and be willing to work on themselves, then that's going to transfer onto. And plus, it creates a way different, better work environment, you know, because all it takes is one or two, and they don't have to tell their coworker, "Hey, why don't you stop?" Because their coworker will see that you're stopping, and they'll say, "Oh, what are you doing?" And then you get to engage in conversation, and you get to say, "You know what? I learned how to relax. I learned how to ignore some things that's triggered at home. I learned how to do that so I can come to work and be able to continue to make a living and not abuse anybody."
And it sounds like a really good idea. Now we're talking about trying to get into a compound that's a cult. And these reform schools, boot camps for kids, wilderness camps, you name it, conversion therapies, they are a cult. And now everybody's on the same page in this cult. So now we're dealing with a different animal. It's not run by the state. These places aren't usually run by the state. They're unlicensed. No one cares about working together as a team unless it's abusing these children. But I see where you're talking about. We need to get to the root of the problem.
If we can get enough people, and this is the cool part about living in a capitalistic society, we get enough people to believe in what we're doing, and say you have this boarding school that's employing 100 people and taking care of 200 kids in a big old house, and you say, okay, that's what you got. I'm coming with a bigger house, with a better staff, better trained, and I will buy you out. What are you going to do? Okay. You're going to say, oh, because the money is evil. It is. But money is useful. Okay? And if somehow, and this is, again, I dream so expansive, it's pathetic, but I chase my dreams. Okay? If somebody comes up and saying people believe in a competitive society, I can come to you and you could be the leader of that cult, and you could be in a hole with fines and everything, and I'll say, I'll bail you out, but you're going to do the way I want you to do it. And you're going to be, okay. And that changes right there.
Money talk.
You know, money talk. I bought a mansion, and I'm building up this mansion in a little town in which somebody even asked me, why are you putting a place in that drug-infested, I mean, that's their mentality. Why are you putting a house to help the homeless in a drug-infested neighborhood? Well, that's the best place to put it. You know, but I'm not walking in with that same cult-like environment as the rest of the town.
Right.
I'm walking in with a fresh start, and this is how we're going to do it. And, you know, I'm going to demonstrate how this is going to benefit you.
And maybe that one change of a light in the middle of a drug-infested neighborhood could change that neighborhood to a non-drug-infested neighborhood.
Exactly. Because if I start treating one person right and they feel good, then there's two of us treating 4 people right. And they all feel good. And then those 4 people will treat 16 people right. And you had a neighborhood with change. And the same thing with those places. A lot of them are ingrained so intensely that you'd have to unfortunately wait until it just dies out. Okay? That's the sad part. But right. As long as you continue to bring awareness and have people that's willing to look at it, because there's always somebody higher up the food chain, you know. And you just have to get to that person and get them to believe in what you're doing so change can happen.
I agree.
Look at our government and all that control. I hate to get all political, but it took a mass of people to say, hey, something's wrong, before somebody at the top can say, something's wrong, you know. And the same thing would have to happen for the kids. But it takes a constant voice, a calm voice. Because if we go in going, that is wrong, and I'm going to break things because I'm angry, they're going to go, look, I told you that person was just angry than we are.
Right. We're back to spoon feeding.
Exactly. There you go. You know, there you go. And so we have a perfect vehicle. We have a book of change. Right. We have a book we can give to somebody.
It is the light in the middle of darkness.
Right. And all they have to do is say, that's interesting. That's all you have to do is get somebody to ask why. Right. And you can make the change.
I agree.
There.
And so, you were such an angel. Thank you so much for all of this.